Hey, everybody, this is Kirsten here. Welcome back to the Balanced Vibes podcast. Today, we're talking about the ways to measure your progress if you have a body composition goal. What are the good ways to measure? What are not so good ways to measure progress? And how exactly to measure your progress? Before that, though, I want to say that I am on a little break from Instagram. So if you have been following me there, I am not there for at least a couple of weeks. Who knows, maybe a little bit longer. I am still in my Facebook group, very active there. My Facebook page also is active. I'm obviously continuing to do the podcast that you can watch on YouTube or listen to on iTunes. So all these will be totally normal the way they always are, but I'm just not on Instagram. So if you are used to following me there, make sure that you join my Fit and Fueled Facebook group if you want to stay in touch. I want to stay in touch. I want to know what you're up to. So make sure that you join that Facebook group. And of course, I hope that you keep watching or listening to this podcast also while I am not on Instagram. Okay, so today we're going to talk about some ways to really measure your progress and also what to do if you feel like nothing is changing. Okay, so the first thing that I encourage you to do is to take photos. If you want to change your body composition, it's really good if you have a good starting point. You took your photos when you started your journey so that you can take more photos later on and then compare them. Do I see the difference? Because let me tell you, it's really difficult to see the difference if you just look yourself in the mirror. You live in your body every single day and you don't see the subtle changes that are happening unless you are taking the photos and really see the difference there. And by the way, all these ways of measuring your progress that I'm talking to about today are the ones that I use with all of my clients. So I ask all my clients to take the photos, also take the measurements, which we'll get to in a second. Now, how to take good photos then? Take 3 photos, one side, one front, and one back, and try to keep the light very similar every single time you take these photos so that you don't have one really bright and one kind of dark. And also make sure that you get good quality photos. It's just easier to see what's going on if your photos are better quality. Don't do things like over your shoulder kind of selfie, to get your back side from the mirror. This is not a good quality photo. You just get so much better information if you do a proper photo. So you can ask somebody to take a photo, or you can use the timer. Most phones, I believe all phones have a timer. So you can put your phone up against, a water bottle or something like that, and turn the camera around and set the timer so that it will take the picture. Because if you do just like over the shoulders or kind of sideways, awkwardly standing, you're not going to get very good photos. Now, I know a lot of people have resistance. They don't want to take them because they feel like I don't look good. I have all these flaws and all these things that I want to get rid of. But I will tell you that later on, you'll be really happy that you did take them, because now you have something to put side by side and see if there has been a difference. Because let's say that you are making really good progress, but you're just not noticing it because you don't have the starting point photos. So that's why it's so good, so important that you do take them. Also take them in a minimal clothing, so wear either your bikini or underwear, and that will again help you to see the changes best. Now, what to look for in the photo? Most people look just the midsection. Am I getting smaller there? Of course, this is the biggest one, because in the midsection we carry a lot of our body fat. So this definitely is a good indicator if the midsection is changing. Are we making progress or not? But at the same time, there are other things too. So you can look at your shoulder definition. Is that coming out a little bit more? You can look at your quads. You can look at your calves. You can look at your upper back. Are you seeing definition there? And not only these things, not only fat loss, also posture. I see it very often that people's posture improves when they start lifting weights, because oftentimes people have forward shoulder, right? We have maybe tight chest muscles and weak upper back, and we're carrying ourselves in a bad position. So a lot of times the posture improves. Also, if there's a problem with pelvic tilt, that can be corrected. And this is definitely something that you see in the photos. Now, if you are feeling like I'm not making any progress, I'm taking those photos and still don't see any progress, then I will tell you to take put the photos side by side. So take one photo every month. Let's say it's the first Monday of every month, or however you want to set it up, once a month, and put these photos side by side. Because I can't tell you how often it has happened that my client reaches out and is like, oh my goodness, this is not working. I don't know what to do. Panic, panic. And then I just put these photos side by side and send them back to them. And then they say, oh yeah, I do see a difference. So it is definitely worthwhile to not only take the photos, but look at them side by side. Go on Canva and put these photos side by side so you can clearly see what's going on. This is how I do it. And when I send them back to my clients, they often say, okay, yeah, I do see the difference now. Okay, so the second thing is to take measurements. And also a measurement should be taken once a month, sometimes more often, but I will get there in a second. Now, which measurements to take? I would say take at least your chest, take your belly button, smallest part of your waist, hips, the widest part of your hips, and then your thighs. So everything should be the widest part, right? Your chest and your hips, widest part. And then when it's the smallest part of waist, that's literally the smallest part of the waist. Don't flex, don't push your belly out either. Just be natural, be normal. Now you can add, of course, biceps measurements and calves as well. I do these with my clients. I don't think this is necessary for everybody. What's more important is, your chest, belly, and your hips. So take these measurements and also take them once a month. And you probably want to do them on the same day that you do your photos, because then you know that, okay, this is the morning, I'm going to do all of these photos, all these measurements, and until, next month when I do everything again. Now, measurements are also important because they are telling us how your body fat is changing. So yes, you could test your body fat, but a lot of times these body fat measurements are not super accurate. But I would say that measurements are pretty good indicator of what's going on. So if you're noticing that you are losing inches or centimeters in your midsection or belly button, that probably means that you're losing body fat. If you are noticing that your thighs and maybe your booty are going up a little, then think, how have you been training? If you've been lifting really heavy weights, then you are probably putting on some muscle there, and that could be muscle gain. Now, once a month, take these photos, take these measurements, but some people I'm asking to take measurements more frequently. And these are the ladies who are doing a reverse diet, aka the build-up phase. So if I see that they need to do a reverse diet, which is really often, then I will add to those monthly measurements also bi-weekly midsection measurements. And in addition to those monthly full measurements, we're taking belly button and smallest part of waist. So these will be every 2 weeks. Again, because the reason is that we can tell the body fat change best from these midsection measurements. And also, if you are in a reverse diet program, then taking the midsection measurements and seeing how they change or don't change is a good way of knowing when is it a good time to increase calories, because this is the goal in the reverse diet. So if you take these bi-weekly measurements and you're noticing that your midsection and smallest part of your waist and belly button are staying the same or even going down, that's a good sign that we need to increase your calories a little bit. If they have gone up, then we're gonna wait with the calorie increase and wait until things level out again. So that's why it's important in reverse diet, take more frequent measurements. But if you're not in reverse diet, then and you're in a fat loss phase, then once a month is plenty, and you don't need to do it more often than that. Now, when it comes to photos and measurements, make sure that you are always taking them first thing in the morning before you eat and drink. And if you can, after your bowel movements. So this is the best time to take these photos. I would never want you to take photos like in the evening after you've already eaten 4 meals and drank a lot of water and other liquids and maybe worked out. There's a lot of things that change, and your body will be different at night. Most people weigh more in the evening. So if you take your weight too, which we're going to talk about a little bit later, if you take your weight and when you take your photos and measurements, do them first thing in the morning. Set aside some time because it's going to take some time. Don't rush with it, and then this is the best time to get objective data, because then the variables are always the same. Now, the other thing that I want to talk about is strength. So strength is a really good indicator of whether or not you are moving in the right direction. And ideally, we want to see your strength numbers at the gym going up. Of course, this is not always going to be linear, and you cannot lift heavier and heavier forever, because after 10 years of lifting, you definitely at one point max out. But if you are pretty much in the beginning of this journey, you should see your strength numbers going up. And while there could be some variability, or like, inaccuracy sometimes in measuring, sometimes the photos, the light was a little bit different, the strength is very objective. You just cannot argue with that. Strength is strength. So if you can deadlift 160, you can deadlift 160 pounds, right? There's no arguing with that, versus with measurements that could be like, yeah, I was kind of bloated a little bit, so I don't know if that's that, or if my period is coming, there's a little bit more stuff like that there. But with strength, it's really objective. And if you are able to go up in your weights, then you are absolutely on the right path. Absolutely on the right path. You just can't go wrong with that, because you know this. You have been listening to this podcast for a while. You know how important it is to build strength so that you have a healthy and flexible metabolism, and your fat loss will be a lot easier. Now, when should you maybe avoid taking the photos and measurements? I forgot to mention something here, is that around your period, you may feel a little bit more bloated. A lot of women feel a little bit more bloated around their period, and they may notice that I went up in like an inch or two somewhere. And bloating, of course, is not a healthy thing. There's something in the digestive system that needs to be worked on. But if you feel this way, then this is not the best time to take these photos and measurements. Let things to kind of settle, and maybe take the measurements and photos on day 2 or 3 when the bloating has gone down. And just keep that in mind, because a lot of women say that they feel this way right before the period, sometimes even before or right at their ovulation. So this is another time. Now, one thing that you didn't hear me mention as a super important indicator of, telling where you are you successful or not, you didn't hear me talk about the scale. And it's not because the scale is totally invaluable, doesn't give you any information. It does, but it's not on my top list. And there are several reasons for it. First of all, you probably already know that when you gain muscle, then you may very well maintain your body weight, right? And this is so frustrating. Or you may even go up a little bit. And this is so frustrating for a lot of women who are so attached to the scale, and can totally mess with their heads. So they could be losing inches, but they get on the scale and it's like, oh my God, it's why is it going up? And I've heard it many, many times. Just recently, I remember I put somebody's photos side by side and showed her, hey, look at your midsection. Look at the difference. There's a big difference there. And, she has gained 3 pounds. Probably there's been a nice exchange, body fat and muscle mass. So it's important to understand the scale is not everything. Also, things that can impact the scale weight is, again, where you are in your cycle. Also, what kind of meal did you have recently? Did you have some takeout? Did you go to a restaurant? That can also increase your weight and not give you the accurate reading. While the other metrics or the other factors that I mentioned, the photos, measurements, and strength, they are definitely more like they don't change as often, let's put it that way. And I think that so many women have a really bad relationship with the scale. So I don't mind if they decide that I'm not going to look at the scale anymore. To be honest, I think it can be very, very distracting. And if you find yourself being so distracted by the scale too, just throw it out or lock it up. This is my advice for you. If you really want to change your body composition, you cannot think about the scale all the time. You just can't. It's not a healthy thing to do. And it's not going to give you it's not going to put you in a good headspace to continue on this path that you are on right now. It's just too distracting. Now, what do you do if you are doing all the things? You are tracking your macros, you're doing your workouts, you're taking your walks, and you feel like you're not making any progress, or you're even going in the wrong direction. So what can you do then? Well, first of all, I will ask you, if you took your photos, did you put them side by side? Coming back to my point earlier, did you put them side by side? Because if you didn't, do it. You may notice that you're just panicking without a reason. You may see the difference. And just keep that in mind. Don't get frustrated. Don't panic. Do that first. Now, if you notice that my measurements have gone up, so this actually just recently what happened with one of my clients too. Measurements had gone up, and it wasn't just a little bit. It was 3 inches, right? 3 inches 1 month from 1 month ago in her midsection. And that, yes, that does sound a lot, especially considering that we didn't do a huge calorie increase. And I told her, okay, before we get all, too panicky here, let's make sure that we took the measurements right. And let's take the measurements again tomorrow. And she did. And of course, there was a measuring error. So the day before, she had measured wrong or looked at the measuring tape wrong. And she was back, she was the same. Her midsection measurement was the same as it was the last time that she took it. So there was actually no reason to panic, but now we got all fired up and saying this is not working. So before we panic, let's calm down and let's make sure that we are, that we took the measurements properly. And this is normal, it happens. There's nothing to kind of beat yourself up about or anything like that. But I just want to tell you that stay calm, no matter where you are, no matter what's happening, even if you went up an inch, there's never a reason to panic. Everything can be turned around, everything can be adjusted, and maybe it was just something as simple as a measuring error. So that's definitely something to just double check that if that happens to you too. Now, and these, by the way, these examples are all from real life, from working with my clients. The other message that I got last week was this. Okay, like 2 weeks ago, I tried on these old jeans that didn't previously fit, and they fit so well 2 weeks ago. But now, what's going on? I don't understand. They don't fit anymore today. What is it? What is it? What is it? Right? And again, we get into this like overthinking mode. This is not working. Oh my God. But let me tell you, if you fit in your jeans 2 weeks ago, and you didn't increase your calories and you didn't, do anything super crazy, then there's either, there's something going on. So let's figure this out. So I started asking her, have you been eating out a little bit more recently? And she said, yes. Last night and the night before, I got takeout. Okay. This is a pretty obvious reason because takeout meals often have more sodium in them. So that will do it. That will cause you a little bit of bloating, and you may feel like your midsection is not what it was like 2 weeks ago. And it will go down. I mean, given that you don't continue to eat out every single week or every single night, it will go down. But just this initial like, oh my God, what is going on? We don't need that. Let's stay calm. Okay, let's see if I had any other points here. And then one more thing, if you may be doing this by yourself, you don't have a coach that you work with, ask somebody else's objective opinion, right? So sometimes even when people see their photos side by side and I see the difference, they're like, I don't see anything. Okay, well, maybe ask somebody else too. A lot of times we're so self-critical. And another example from real life, from one of my clients, she said, oh yeah, my daughter saw a huge difference and said, Mom, you're doing really great. I didn't see the difference. Okay. We're just really, really critical. We are in our heads a lot. We like to be very judgmental of ourselves. So sometimes we need somebody else to tell us. And I've heard also people say that, oh, my husband said it, but he had to say this because he's my husband, right? So not necessarily. What if there actually really is a change and you're just like really self-critical, you're not able to see it. So be a little bit gentler with yourself, be a little kinder to yourself, avoid the panic, avoid the, oh my God, this shit is not working, because it probably is. If you are actually accurate with your tracking, if you're doing the workouts, if you're taking the steps, you're doing most things right most of the time, then there is progress. It's not always super fast progress, but there usually is progress. Calorie deficit does work, right? It's just like, are you actually in a calorie deficit? And if you are, if you're doing all the things right, then you should really see the progress. You should see the change in the photos. You should see the change in your measurements. And strength, of course, one factor is that when you go into a calorie deficit, your strength may go down a little because you literally have less energy in you, you're eating less food. Yes, but it shouldn't be like dramatic strength loss either. So keep these things in mind, and these are the best ways to really know if you are moving in the right direction. The best thing is not to stare at the scale, and the best reaction is never like freak out and panic. The best reaction is, okay, let's see what's going on, and if things are not moving the way we want, then what can we tweak? What can we change? I would like you to take the urgency out of the whole weight loss, fat loss journey. Everything's like urgent, have to get everything by tomorrow. It's usually not going to go well. There's just so much intensity. What if you can stay calm? What if you can look at the objective numbers, objective data, such as your strength, and see if you are actually making progress, because you probably are. Okay, so this is all I have for you today. Thank you so much for being here with me, and I will see you in the next episode.